God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
Oh, I'm 1 foot out. I'm 1 foot out.
Yeah, no, well, we shall see, obviously, with the weather and the cleanup in the city. That is another big story we've been following. But, you know, overall, I think that what you will see is these democratic socialist these policies in particular from Zohar Mamdani and the group are going to not just fail spectacularly, but when you have people start to say from his side of the spectrum that dogs shouldn't be allowed in New York City, whole other story we don't have time to get into, but real quick, that's where he's going to lose New Yorkers.
Yeah, he's saying that the dogs are dirty. Sweetheart, look at your city. Your city's too dirty for me to want to bring my dog.
There you go. All right, Emily Austin, Ryan Payne, guys, thank you. That is it for me. Maria is back tomorrow. Right now, sending it over to Ashley Webster. He's in for Stuart this morning.
Hey, good morning, Cheryl. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ashley Webster. Yes, indeed, in for Stuart Varney today. All right, let's get right to it. The fight over voter ID is ramping up. Senator Chuck Schumer promising to fight a bill tooth and nail. President Trump, meantime, says he might just bypass Congress altogether and sign an executive order. Meanwhile, the stock and bond markets are closed today for President's Day, but futures are trading, and those are all in the green, modestly so. The Dow up 100 197 points. NASDAQ up just 37. Take a look at Bitcoin if we can. Down slightly, $376 at 68,384. What about gold? Still above 5,000? It is, although it's down nearly $30, $5,017 per troy ounce. Take a look at silver. That's also been on a tear, down $1 or thereabouts at 76.90. And what about oil? How much is a barrel of oil going for? It's up very slightly, 23 cents at $63.12. By the way, the average price for a gallon of regular gas, $2.92. Not too shabby. On the show today, an overseas blunder for Democrats. Some on the left, seen as potential 2028 White House contenders, tried to go after Donald Trump in Munich. But it was a complete flop. We'll show you. Students at Columbia were up in arms over a school advertisement. It was for a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol virtual career expo. What? Columbia gave in to the uproar and removed the promotion from its website. Nearly 250 million gallons of raw sewage spilled into the Potomac. It's going to take 9 months to repair that sewer line, and that would put the cleanup way past any America 250 events planned for the nation's capital. Yuck. And a wild finish at the Daytona 500. Tyler Reddick won for the first time in his career. Guess what? He didn't lead a single lap until the very end. Now, that's a race. It is Monday, February the 16th, 2026.
And that is Varney and Company. Back on Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Mossad.
Brussels, mid-2000s. A woman in her late 20s sits in a cafe 2 blocks from the European Parliament, laptop open, nursing an espresso that went cold an hour ago. She's waiting for a man who believes she works for a German pharmaceutical distributor. He's carrying documents that could redirect nearly 12 million euros to accounts in Beirut, funds earmarked for precision components that won't be used to manufacture medical devices. Her legend is clean: fabricated LinkedIn profile, real office address in Frankfurt, even a company car leased under her cover name. She's been building this identity for 8 months. The target arrives. They talk. He relaxes. She makes one small error, uses a Hebrew idiom translated too literally into English. He doesn't react immediately, but his posture shifts. Suddenly, she's calculating exits. Does he suspect? Is he calling someone? Did the entire operation just collapse because of 3 words? And if it did, what happens to the other 2 operatives, already committed to this network? If you want to see how intelligence operations actually unfold and what they cost, subscribe now. Now rewind. Mossad doesn't recruit female operatives because of progressive ideology. The organization recruits them because certain operational environments require specific human tools. And in intelligence work, gender can function as both camouflage and access. Women in Mossad aren't mascots. They're case officers, surveillance specialists, technical infiltrators, and, occasionally, the person holding the weapon when the target is too conditioned to see a threat coming from that direction. The selection process filters for psychological durability, not physical dominance. Candidates are pulled from the Israeli Defense Forces, often from intelligence units like Amman, or the Air Force's Unit 8200, but also from civilian sectors where language skills, technical expertise, or specific cultural knowledge create value. A woman who grew up speaking Arabic at home, studied engineering in Tel Aviv, and served in signals intelligence has a profile Mossad notices. So does someone who spent years working in European finance or tech startups, building networks that don't look like intelligence work, but function exactly the same way. Training doesn't differentiate by gender when it comes to core tradecraft. Everyone learns how to build and maintain cover identities, run surveillance detection routes, conduct dead drops, assess recruitment targets, and manage the compartmentalization required to live 2 lives without fracturing. The physical requirements are demanding, but calibrated to operational need rather than abstract standards. A surveillance operative needs to blend into urban environments for 12-hour shifts without drawing attention. A case officer needs to maintain composure during confrontational recruitment pitches. A combatant needs to execute close quarters work if an operation goes kinetic. The training tests whether you can perform under the specific conditions your role demands. What does shift is operational deployment. Female operatives are disproportionately tasked with roles that exploit assumptions. A woman traveling alone raises fewer flags than a man in certain contexts. A couple presents differently than two male operatives working together. A female case officer approaching a male target in a social setting doesn't trigger the same defensive posture as a male intelligence officer making contact. The work is not glamorous. It's years of patience building cover, managing double lives, and sitting in rooms with people you're manipulating while maintaining the performance of authenticity. The psychological cost is cumulative. Relationships outside the organization fracture under the weight of operational security. Trust becomes a tactical calculation rather than an emotional baseline. And the operational tempo, especially for officers deployed overseas under non-official cover, can be relentless. You're not stationed at an embassy with diplomatic immunity. You're living in Frankfurt or Paris or Dubai under a false identity, with no safety net if something breaks. Mossad's female operatives aren't deployed randomly. Their assignments reflect specific intelligence gaps the organization cannot close through traditional collection methods. In the early 2000s, one of those gaps involved financial networks funneling money to Hezbollah through ostensibly legitimate European businesses. Banks wouldn't share data. Signals intelligence captured fragments, but couldn't map the decision makers. Human intelligence required someone who could get close to mid-level facilitators without triggering counterintelligence scrutiny. The constraint wasn't capability, it was access. Male operatives working under business cover in European financial centers faced a baseline level of skepticism. Their approaches to potential recruitment targets were more likely to be interpreted as adversarial or suspicious. Female operatives, especially those with credible business backgrounds, could initiate contact in settings, industry conferences, networking events, professional associations, where their presence didn't register as anomalous. One operation targeting a procurement network in Belgium required an operative to establish herself as a consultant in pharmaceutical logistics. The legend took months to construct. Company registration, tax filings, fabricated transaction history, even a website with minimal but real client references generated through cutouts. She attended trade shows, built a professional network, and slowly positioned herself to cross paths with a Lebanese businessman managing shipments that weren't pharmaceutical, but were using pharmaceutical supply chains for cover. The challenge wasn't initial contact. It was sustaining the relationship long enough to collect actionable intelligence without arousing suspicion. Every interaction required calibration. Too much interest, and she'd seem like a competitor or intelligence threat. Too little, and the access would evaporate. She needed him to trust her enough to discuss logistics details he wouldn't share with a stranger, but not so much that he'd expect reciprocal confidences she couldn't provide. What made the operation viable was her ability to use professional competence as cover. She wasn't pretending to know logistics. She actually understood the industry well enough to offer value in their conversations. That credibility was built through weeks of research, briefings with subject matter experts, and rehearsals where senior case officers pressure-tested her legend for weaknesses. She could discuss customs regulations, carrier reliability, cold chain management, and documentation requirements without hesitation. That knowledge wasn't window dressing. It was operational armor. The operational plan relied on creating multiple points of plausible contact, so that no single meeting would appear deliberate. The target attended a quarterly logistics forum in Brussels. Mossad's operative would be there, presenting on regulatory compliance in cross-border pharmaceutical transport. A real topic, using real industry data, delivered convincingly enough that nobody in the room would question her credibility. The presentation itself was operational infrastructure. It positioned her as someone with expertise the target might need. After the session, she engineered a brief conversation. Nothing heavy, just enough to exchange business cards and establish a professional reason for follow-up contact. The initial email she sent 3 days later referenced a specific regulatory issue he'd mentioned during the forum. It was helpful, not transactional. She was building a relationship that looked organic. Over the next 2 months, they exchanged emails about compliance frameworks, logistical bottlenecks, and vendor reliability. The correspondence was professional, focused, and, critically, initiated by both sides. She wasn't chasing him. She was maintaining the rhythm of a normal business relationship, one that occasionally warranted in-person meetings when their schedules aligned in Brussels or Frankfurt. During the third meeting, at a restaurant near the European quarter, she mentioned, casually, embedded in a broader conversation about supply chain challenges, that she'd worked with clients moving sensitive materials through customs. The phrasing was careful. She didn't offer services. She established knowledge. His response told her whether he'd register that as useful information or irrelevant noise. He asked a follow-up question. That question became the pivot point. It signaled he was considering whether she could solve a problem he hadn't explicitly named yet. Her job now was to let him arrive at that conclusion on his own, rather than appearing to push an agenda. Intelligence work at this level isn't interrogation. It's guided drift, where the target believes they're steering the conversation while you're managing the current. She waited, let the silence sit, took a sip of wine, then mentioned a shipment she'd coordinated for a client, vague enough to avoid specifics, detailed enough to demonstrate capability. The client had needed components moved through multiple jurisdictions without drawing regulatory attention. The shipment had cleared customs in 3 countries without inspection. He listened. 2 weeks later, he called. Said he had a logistics challenge. Needed someone discreet. Could they meet? The meeting happened in a hotel bar in Antwerp. He arrived 20 minutes late, standard counter-surveillance behavior, testing whether she'd wait or whether the urgency was coming from her side. She ordered a second coffee and worked on her laptop. When he sat down, she didn't look relieved. She looked mildly annoyed at the interruption, then recognized him and smiled. He needed to move precision-machined components from a supplier in Germany to a distributor in Lebanon. The components were technically dual-use, legitimate industrial applications, but also compatible with weapons guidance systems. European export controls flagged shipments to certain Middle Eastern destinations. He needed a logistics partner who could structure the shipment to avoid regulatory scrutiny. She asked technical questions. What were the components? What quantities? What timelines? Her questions weren't suspicion. They were professional due diligence. He provided answers, watching her reaction. She took notes, said she'd need to review compliance requirements and get back to him within a week. That week, Mossad's analysts tore apart every detail he'd provided. They cross-referenced the supplier, the component specifications, the destination addresses. The intelligence confirmed what they suspected. The shipment was destined for Hezbollah's precision munitions program. The components would be integrated into guidance kits that converted unguided rockets into precision strike weapons, the kind that could hit specific buildings in Israeli cities, rather than just general areas. The decision point wasn't whether to stop the shipment. It was how to stop it without burning the operative's cover. If the shipment simply disappeared or got intercepted at customs, he'd know someone had tipped off authorities. The operative would be compromised. Months of legend building would collapse. Worse, it would alert the broader network that they had a security breach, forcing them to change protocols and making future penetration harder. Mossad needed the intelligence more than they needed to block one shipment. They needed to map the entire network. Who else was involved? What other routes existed? Where the money was moving? Who was making decisions? That meant the operative had to stay in play, which meant the shipment had to move, at least initially. She met him again, presented a logistics plan that routed the shipment through a shell company in Cyprus, then to a distributor in Turkey, before final delivery to Lebanon. The routing added cost, but reduced regulatory visibility. Each jurisdiction saw a transaction that appeared legitimate in isolation. No single customs authority would flag it because no single leg of the journey violated export controls on its own. He liked the plan, asked about cost. She quoted a fee that was high, but not suspiciously high, consistent with what a legitimate facilitator would charge for this level of complexity and risk. He agreed. The shipment moved forward, but every step was monitored. Mossad tracked the supplier, documented the handoff points, identified the individuals managing each stage. They photographed participants, recorded communications, traced financial flows. The operative continued her role, providing logistical updates while extracting intelligence about other shipments in the pipeline. Then the mistake happened. 6 weeks into the operation, during a routine meeting at the same cafe in Brussels, she made a reference that didn't fit her legend. A comment about regional politics, phrased in a way that revealed more situational awareness than a pharmaceutical logistics consultant should have. Not overt, not obvious, but enough that someone trained to notice inconsistencies might register it. His expression didn't change. He nodded, continued the conversation. But his body language shifted. The relaxed posture tightened. He checked his phone twice in 5 minutes, behavior he hadn't exhibited in previous meetings. She recognized the shift immediately, didn't panic, finished her coffee, wrapped the meeting naturally. But the moment she left, she activated her counter-surveillance protocol. Took 3 different metro lines, switched trains twice, walked through a department store and exited through a service entrance, then circled back to check if anyone was following. No tail that she could detect. But absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. She reported the compromise risk to her handler through a prearranged signal, a specific time-stamped transaction on a dummy e-commerce account that triggered an alert in Tel Aviv. Within 6 hours, a senior case officer was on a flight to Brussels. They met in a parking garage, 30-minute window, engine running. The assessment was cold. She'd given him a reason to doubt, but not enough to act decisively. If he suspected she was intelligence, he had 3 options: cut contact and disappear, feed her false information to waste Israeli resources, or attempt to confirm his suspicion before making a move. Each option carried risk for him. Cutting contact meant abandoning a logistics channel he needed. Feeding false information only worked if he could sustain the deception long enough to gain something. Confirming suspicion meant exposing himself to potential surveillance or confrontation. Mossad's operational calculus was equally constrained. Pulling her out immediately would confirm his suspicions and burn the entire network penetration. Keeping her in place risked physical compromise. If he decided to confirm his suspicions through hostile means, she'd be alone in a foreign city with no diplomatic cover. The decision came down to risk tolerance and intelligence value. How much did they need the network map? How replaceable was the operative? The handler made the call. She would stay and play, but with modified protocols. No more in-person meetings unless absolutely necessary. All future communication would shift to digital channels that provided her more control over timing and environment. They'd accelerate intelligence collection on the network, operating under the assumption that the window was closing. She sent him an email 2 days later. Professional, routine. Mentioned she'd be traveling for the next 3 weeks. Client meetings in Frankfurt and Munich. But remained available for logistics coordination via encrypted messaging. The message served dual purposes. It explained reduced availability without seeming like evasion, and it tested whether he'd push for in-person contact despite her stated schedule. He didn't push, responded normally, asked for an update on a separate shipment they'd discussed. His tone was professional, transactional. Either he'd dismissed his suspicion, or he was managing his own operational security by maintaining normal behavior while investigating her background through other channels. Mossad assumed the latter. They began monitoring his communications more aggressively, tracking who he contacted in the 72 hours after their last meeting. The signal's intelligence revealed 2 calls to a number in Beirut, associated with Hezbollah's external security apparatus. The calls were brief, coded, but the pattern was clear. He was reporting a potential security concern and requesting guidance. The response came within a week. A new contact entered the picture, a Lebanese national traveling on a French passport, arriving in Brussels with no clear business justification for the trip. Mossad's surveillance teams picked him up at the airport. He was careful, ran counter-surveillance, changed hotels twice, met with the original target in a location they hadn't used before, a coffee shop in a residential neighborhood far from the European quarter, chosen specifically because it was off the established pattern. The meeting lasted 17 minutes. No physical exchange, just conversation. The surveillance team couldn't get close enough for audio without being burned, but their body language told the story. The new arrival was asking questions. The original target was explaining, pointing at his phone, likely showing the operative's profile, correspondence, maybe her company website. After the meeting, the new arrival made 4 phone calls and booked a flight to Frankfurt. That's when Mossad knew. He wasn't investigating her legend remotely. He was sending someone to check it in person. If the Frankfurt office existed, if her business references held up under light scrutiny, the suspicion might dissipate. But if anything didn't match, if the office was a serviced address with no real staff, if her clients couldn't be verified, if any detail of her legend showed cracks under physical inspection, she'd be confirmed as hostile intelligence. The operative had 48 hours before he landed in Frankfurt. The office existed, staffed by a single administrative assistant on Mossad's payroll who handled phone calls and maintained minimal documentation. It would pass a walk-by. It might even pass a brief visit if he posed as a potential client. But it wouldn't survive detailed scrutiny or follow-up with her supposed business references, because those references were cutouts designed to handle phone inquiries, not in-person verification. Mossad had built the legend for European business environments where most professional verification happens digitally. They hadn't anticipated someone physically auditing her cover in real time. Now they had to decide. Reinforce the legend with additional operational infrastructure they didn't have time to build properly, or extract the operative and accept that the network penetration was over. The handler gave her the option: stay or pull out. Her call. She stayed. The logic was simple. If she disappeared right before his investigator arrived in Frankfurt, it would confirm everything. The entire network would shut down, change identities, relocate operations. Mossad would be back to zero. But if she stayed, maintained her routine, and the legend held just well enough to create ambiguity, there was a chance the operation could continue. Not a high chance, but enough. She flew to Frankfurt, spent the day at the office, working on real logistics consulting projects they'd fabricated to generate paper trails, made calls, sent emails, had the administrative assistant coordinate a meeting with a prospective client, another Mossad asset playing the role of a German manufacturer. Everything designed to create the appearance of legitimate business activity on the day Hezbollah's investigator was in the city. He never approached her directly. Instead, he watched. Sat in a car across the street for 3 hours, followed her from the office to a restaurant where she met the fake client, photographed the interaction, tracked her back to her apartment, a real lease, real furniture, real utility bills, all part of the legend. Then he left, flew back to Brussels, met with the original target again. Mossad's surveillance team couldn't get audio on that meeting either. But 2 days later, the original target contacted the operative, asked if she could handle another shipment. Larger volume this time, tighter timeline. She said yes. The second shipment was a test. Mossad's analysts knew it immediately. The volume was higher, the components more sensitive, and the timeline compressed in a way that forced rapid decision-making. If she hesitated, asked too many questions, or tried to delay, it would confirm residual suspicion. If she accepted too quickly without proper due diligence, it would seem unprofessional, or worse, like she was eager to facilitate something she shouldn't be facilitating. She threaded the gap, asked the right questions, expressed concern about the timeline, quoted a higher fee to account for expedited processing and increased risk. He accepted without negotiation. Another signal. He wasn't optimizing for cost. He was optimizing for confirmation. The shipment moved forward, but this time, Mossad made a tactical decision. They wouldn't just monitor it, they would interdict it, but only after extracting maximum intelligence value. The operative continued her coordination role, documenting every participant, every routing decision, every financial transaction. The network was fully mapped now. Mossad knew who was sourcing components, who was moving money, who was managing logistics on the Beirut side. The interdiction happened in Turkey. Turkish authorities, acting on intelligence shared through back channels, seized the shipment during a routine inspection. The official story was a documentation error, incorrect customs declarations that triggered a secondary review. The components were impounded. No arrests, no public attribution to intelligence sharing, just bureaucratic friction that made the shipment disappear into administrative limbo. The original target was furious, called the operative, demanded explanations. She played her role perfectly, expressed confusion, frustration, blamed the Turkish customs system, offered to work with local attorneys to resolve the issue. She was a logistics consultant dealing with a bureaucratic problem, not an intelligence operative who just helped orchestrate an interdiction. But the damage was done, not to her cover, to the network who just helped orchestrate an interdiction. But the damage was done, not to her cover, to the network's confidence in the route. They'd lost a high-value shipment, absorbed the financial hit, and now faced increased scrutiny on future transports through Turkey. The operative suggested alternative routes: Georgia, Ukraine, maritime shipping through Cyprus. each option designed to give Mossad visibility into new segments of the procurement network. He considered her proposals, but 3 weeks later, contact stopped. No explanation, no final meeting, just silence. The operative sent 2 follow-up emails, professional, not desperate, asking about future projects. No response. Mossad's signals intelligence revealed why. The network had made a strategic decision to shut down European procurement operations temporarily and shift to Asian suppliers with different routing. The Turkish interdiction, combined with lingering suspicion about the operative, had pushed them to change tactics. They hadn't confirmed she was intelligence, but they decided the risk wasn't worth the access. The operative was extracted 6 weeks later. Clean exit. She resigned from her consulting company, citing personal reasons, and relocated to another European city under a different identity. The legend was retired. The network moved on. The operational accounting was mixed. Mossad had mapped a significant Hezbollah procurement network, identified key facilitators, documented financial flows, and interdicted one high-value shipment. They'd collected intelligence that would inform future operations and help other agencies track similar networks. But they hadn't dismantled the network. They'd disrupted it, forced adaptation, raised operational costs. The network would rebuild with new routes, new facilitators, new protocols. The cost to the operative was harder to quantify. She'd spent nearly a year living a false identity, managing the psychological strain of sustained deception, and navigating operational compromises that could have ended with her dead in a Brussels alley if the target's suspicion had escalated differently. She'd performed exactly as trained, maintained cover under pressure, made sound tactical decisions, extracted maximum intelligence before the window closed. Mossad compensated its operatives well by Israeli standards, though not by private sector comparisons. Base salary for a case officer deployed overseas under non-official cover ranged from $8,000 to $12,000 per month, depending on seniority and assignment difficulty. Hazard bonuses, housing allowances, and operational stipends added another 30 to 50%. The operative in Brussels was likely earning somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 monthly, plus coverage for all legend-related expenses, rent, car lease, business costs, travel. But compensation wasn't why people stayed in the role. The financial package was adequate, not lucrative. Operatives stayed because they believed the work mattered, because they were good at it, or because they'd been doing it so long that returning to civilian life felt impossible. The psychological toll accumulated regardless of motivation. Every operation added weight. Every close call left residue. Every friendship maintained under false pretenses deepened the isolation. Female operatives faced additional layers. In operational environments where gender created access, it also created vulnerability. A woman traveling alone drew less scrutiny than a man in some contexts, but more in others. A female case officer managing a male target had tactical advantages, but also navigated dynamics where the target's interest might shift from professional to personal, and distinguishing between genuine attraction and manipulation became its own operational challenge. The training addressed these dynamics explicitly. Female operatives learned to manage unwanted advances without breaking cover, to use perceived vulnerability as operational camouflage, and to recognize when a situation was escalating from uncomfortable to dangerous. They trained in close quarters combat, not as a primary skill, but as a final option, what you do when everything else has failed and extraction isn't possible. Some operations required female operatives to build relationships that simulated intimacy, not sexual relationships. Mossad's operational guidelines prohibited intimate involvement with targets except in rare, explicitly authorized cases, but intimate involvement with targets except in rare, explicitly authorized cases. But relationships close enough that the target felt personal connection, trusted the operative with information they wouldn't share in purely transactional contexts. That kind of manipulation left marks. You spend months making someone believe you care about them, extracting their secrets, then disappear when the operation ends. The target feels betrayed. You feel like the person who did the betraying. Both things are true. The operational tempo didn't slow. After Brussels, the operative was reassigned. New identity, new city, new target set. The cycle continued. Build legend, establish access, collect intelligence, manage compromise risk, extract, repeat. Some operatives sustained this for 5 years, others for 10. A few made it 15 years before the psychological cost or operational exposure forced them out. Retirement from operational roles didn't mean leaving Mossad. Experienced case officers moved into training, analytical roles, operational planning. They became the people who built legends for the next generation, who pressure-tested cover stories, who made the tactical calls about when to extract an operative and when to let them stay and play. Their operational experience became institutional knowledge. Lessons learned written into training protocols, case studies analyzed in after-action reviews. What changed in intelligence work after operations like Brussels wasn't tactics, it was awareness. Target networks adapted. They became more suspicious of spontaneous professional relationships. They invested more in vetting logistics partners. They built redundancy into procurement routes so that losing one channel didn't collapse the entire operation. Intelligence services adapted in response, developing new access methodologies, exploiting different vulnerabilities, finding gaps in updated security protocols. The fundamental challenge remained unchanged. How do you get close to someone who has reason to distrust everyone? For Mossad's female operatives, the answer was the same as it had always been. Exploit assumptions, build credibility, sustain performance, and accept that the cost of doing this work is measured in years of your life spent being someone else. Does an operation like this actually degrade a network's capability long-term, or does it just accelerate their operational security evolution? What would you do differently if you were running the operation? If this breakdown of real tradecraft and operational costs resonated with you, leave a comment on how intelligence work has changed, and hit subscribe for the next one.
And that was the Mossad. Back in a minute.
Nothing worth doing ever came easy. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Never, ever quit. Never quit. Adversity makes you stronger. Don't give in, don't back down, and never stop doing what you know is right. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedoms. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way.
When they couldn't beat him, they tried to bankrupt him.
President Trump is back in a New York City courtroom.
When that didn't work, they tried to put him in federal prison.
Raided by the FBI.
When that didn't work, they even tried to kill him.
He just tried to kill President Trump.
Donald Trump still stands, ready to fight, ready to win, and ready to make America great again.
This is Donald Trump's house, brother.
This election, we all get to choose. I'm going to choose real American leadership and a real American values. The 45th and soon to be 47th President Donald J. Trump.
Starting on day one, we will defeat inflation quickly and we will make America affordable again. I will cut your energy costs in half. It's time for the working man and woman to finally catch a break. We are going to bring back the American dream bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. When I'm back in the White House, we will restore world peace, and it will be again peace through strength. I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. I will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country. November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America. We all salute the same great American flag. Our best days are yet to come. Together, we will make America great again. America is a land of heroes, a place where greatness is born, where destinies are forged, and where legends come to life.
This is the home of Thomas Edison and Teddy Roosevelt, of many great generals, including Washington, Pershing, Patton, and MacArthur. This is the home of Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Earhart, Harriet Tubman, the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, and so many more. This is the country where children learn names like Wyatt Earp, Davy Crockett, and Annie Oakley. This is the place where the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth and where Texas patriots made their last stand at the Alamo. The American nation was carved out of the vast frontier by the toughest, strongest, fiercest, and most determined men and women ever to walk on the face of the earth. Our ancestors braved the unknown, tamed the wilderness, settled the Wild West, lifted millions from poverty, disease, and hunger, vanquished tyranny and fascism, ushered the world to new heights of science and medicine, laid down the railroads, dug out the canals, raised up the skyscrapers. Our ancestors built the most exceptional republic ever to exist in all of human history, and we are making it greater than ever before. This is our glorious and magnificent inheritance. We are Americans. We are pioneers. We are the pathfinders. We settled the new world. We built the modern world. And we changed history forever by embracing the eternal truth that everyone is made equal by the hand of Almighty God. America is the place where anything can happen. America is the place where anyone can rise. And here, on this land, on this soil, on this continent, the most incredible dreams come true. This nation is our canvas, and this country is our masterpiece. We look at tomorrow and see unlimited frontiers just waiting to be explored. Our brightest discoveries are not yet known. Our most thrilling stories are not yet told. Our grandest journeys are not yet made. The American age, the American epic, the American adventure has only just begun. Our spirit is still young. The sun is still rising. God's grace is still shining. And my fellow Americans, the best is yet to come. This is a movement like we've never seen in the history of our country.
Wisconsin is Trump country.
And that's what this fight is all about. We're taking on the failed political establishment and restoring government of, by, and for the people. It's the people. You're the people. You won the election.
We love this country. We love Donald Trump.
Promises made, promises kept.
We support President Trump.
This is epic.
Donald Trump is our president!
With every last ounce of heart and hope and sweat and soul, we are going to make our stand. We are going to stand for liberty. We are going to stand for justice. We are going to stand for freedom. And we are going to stand for the sacred rights given to us by the hand of Almighty God. You joined our movement, the greatest movement in the history of our country. You protected your family. You defended your dignity. You recaptured your destiny. And you took back your country with that great election 2.5 years ago. We are one united movement, one united people, and one United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Now you finally have a president who is loyal to you. Every day between now and November 2020, we are going to keep on working, we are going to keep on fighting, and we are going to keep on winning, winning, winning. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you. If I give you one message to hold in your hearts today, it's this. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep pushing forward. Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. In America, we don't worship government, we worship God. My administration will always support and defend your religious liberty. There is nothing that we cannot do. There is absolutely nothing we cannot match. There is no challenge that you will let us down. You will never let us down. The people of Ohio will never let us down. This towering American spirit has prevailed over every challenge and lifted us to the summit of human endeavor. At no time before have voters faced a clearer choice between two parties, two visions, two philosophies, or two agendas. This election will decide whether we save the American dream or whether we allow a socialist agenda to demolish our cherished destiny. Your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans or whether we give free rein to violent anarchists, agitators, and criminals who threaten our citizens. And this election will decide whether we will defend the American way of life or whether we will allow a radical movement to completely dismantle and destroy it. Our radical Democrat opponents are driven by hatred, prejudice, and rage. They want to destroy you, and they want to destroy our country as we know it.
4 years ago, we took a wrong turn and lost our purpose. We lost the strength that makes Americans who we are. If we dared to speak the truth, it was called hate speech, and our values were labeled shameful. That's when everything we care about fell apart. We surrendered our borders, our paychecks, and our courage. Our patriotism was called toxic. Men could beat up women and win medals, but there was no prize for the guy who got up every day to do his job. Now we're being asked to settle for the way things are. And we're wondering if America can make a comeback. We can, because we've done it before. When we get knocked down, we don't stay down. We get up again. We fight. We fight. We fight.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message. What will we do with this moment? How will we be remembered?
Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we the people choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
This country, and it's the people who are making America great again.
Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.